Before dawn on July 16, 1945, the desert of New Mexico was so quiet that men could hear their own breathing inside their gas masks. Then the night turned white, brighter than the sun, and the ground itself seemed to rise. Some of the world's smartest scientists wept. Some laughed. One remembered an ancient line from the Bhagavad Gita: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." What happened in those seconds had been set in motion years earlier by fear, ambition, exile, secrecy, and the very human belief that history could still be controlled by a handful of people who understood it better than anyone else. In the summer of 1939, Albert Einstein did not want to be involved in weapons. He had fled Nazi Germany, watched friends disappear, and carried a deep unease about the future of science in the hands of governments. But when fellow physicists Leo Szilard and Eugene Wigner came to him with alarming news that Nazi scientists might be attempting to build an atomic bomb, Einstein agreed to lend his name to a letter addressed to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The letter was brief, cautious, and momentous. It warned that recent discoveries in nuclear fission could lead to extremely powerful bombs of a new type. Roosevelt read it in October. Within weeks, the United States began moving toward what would become the Manhattan Project, the most expensive and secret scientific undertaking in human history. At first, it didn't feel historic. It felt bureaucratic. Committees formed, reports circulated, funding trickled in slowly. America was not yet at war, and the idea of building a bomb that no one had ever seen, based on equations few politicians could understand, felt abstract. But across the Atlantic, war was very real. Poland had fallen. France would soon follow. Jewish scientists were fleeing Europe in waves, carrying knowledge in their heads that no suitcase could hold. One of them was Enrico Fermi, who had already helped create the world's first nuclear reactor in a squash court under the University of Chicago. Another was Edward Teller, brilliant, intense, and already thinking beyond a fission bomb toward something even more destructive. And there was J. Robert Oppenheimer, a thin, chain-smoking theorist with a poetic mind, a complicated personal life, and a talent for making people feel that impossible things were inevitable. When the United States entered World War II after Pearl Harbor, inevitability hardened into urgency. The fear was simple and terrifying. If Nazi Germany built the bomb first, the war, and perhaps civilization, would end on Hitler's terms. Speed became morality. Secrecy became survival. The Manhattan Project officially took shape in 1942 under the command of General Leslie Groves, a man known for building the Pentagon and for his bulldozing decisiveness. Groves needed a scientific leader. Against expectations, he chose Oppenheimer, a man with no Nobel Prize, left-leaning political associations, and a reputation for being difficult. But Groves saw something others missed. Oppenheimer could understand every part of the project and speak every language: physics, engineering, chemistry, and ego. Oppenheimer chose a remote site in northern New Mexico for the project's main laboratory, Los Alamos, a former boys' school perched on a mesa, reachable by dirt roads and surrounded by canyons. It was beautiful, isolated, and ideal for secrecy. Families arrived under false pretenses. Mail was censored. Addresses were simply P.O. Box 1663, Santa Fe. Children grew up not knowing what their parents did for work. Scientists worked 12-hour days, 6 or 7 days a week, chasing calculations that could not afford to be wrong. The problem they faced was not one problem, but many. First, they needed fissile material, uranium-235 or plutonium-239, both rare and difficult to produce. Entire industrial cities sprang up almost overnight.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee, housed massive electromagnetic separators that consumed more electricity than some states. Hanford, Washington, built reactors to breed plutonium, poisoning land and river in ways not fully understood at the time. Then there was the bomb itself. Early designs imagined a simple gun-type weapon, slamming two pieces of uranium together to achieve critical mass. It was elegant and, for uranium, reliable. But plutonium behaved differently. It fissioned too easily, threatening a premature explosion, a fizzle. To use plutonium, the scientists had to invent something radically new: implosion. Implosion meant surrounding a plutonium core with precisely shaped high explosives that would detonate simultaneously, compressing the metal inward until it became supercritical. The timing had to be perfect. Nanoseconds mattered. No one had ever done this before. Failure could mean wasting years of work, or worse, detonating a nuclear device by accident. While the scientists wrestled with physics, the world pressed in. Germany surrendered in May 1945. The original justification for the bomb evaporated almost overnight. But the project did not stop. Now the target was Japan, and the reasoning shifted. Invasion would cost hundreds of thousands of American lives. The bomb could end the war quickly, or so it was believed. On July 16, 1945, at a site called Trinity, the implosion bomb was tested. The device, nicknamed the Gadget, sat atop a steel tower in the desert. The explosion vaporized the tower, fused sand into green glass, later called trinitite, and sent a mushroom cloud rising over 40,000 feet. Ranchers miles away thought the sun had risen early. Some scientists feared they might ignite the atmosphere, a possibility dismissed mathematically but never tested until that moment. The test worked. Less than a month later, on August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped a uranium bomb called Little Boy on Hiroshima. The city vanished in a flash of light and heat. Tens of thousands died instantly. Many more would die slowly from burns and radiation. 3 days later, a plutonium bomb, Fat Man, destroyed Nagasaki. Japan surrendered. World War II ended. In the United States, people celebrated. Newspapers called it a triumph of science and American ingenuity. The men and women of the Manhattan Project returned home to a country that barely knew what they had done. But history did not settle. Oppenheimer became a public figure, then a symbol, then a target. He opposed the development of the hydrogen bomb, arguing that there must be limits. In the climate of Cold War paranoia, his past associations were dredged up. In 1954, he was stripped of his security clearance in a humiliating hearing that revealed how quickly a nation could turn on one of its architects. Meanwhile, the bomb reshaped everything. The Soviet Union detonated its own atomic weapon in 1949, aided by espionage from within the Manhattan Project itself. The arms race accelerated. Cities learned to practice duck and cover. Children grew up under the shadow of mushroom clouds printed in textbooks and television screens. The astonishing truth is that the Manhattan Project was not just a scientific achievement, it was a human experiment conducted at imaginable scale. It showed what happens when fear compresses time, when secrecy isolates morality, and when brilliance is asked to solve problems faster than wisdom can follow. The people involved were not monsters or gods. They were immigrants and farm boys, poets and engineers, parents and lovers. They argued, joked, fell ill, fell in love, and made mistakes. And together, they crossed a line that humanity has never been able to uncross. The desert where the first bomb exploded is quiet again. Wind moves over scrub and sand. But the light that rose there once still travels forward in time, reflected in every debate about nuclear power, every treaty, every warning siren, every question about whether knowledge itself can ever be neutral.